everyone, and welcome to my guide to photo mode on the F1 22 game. So the first thing I want to talk about with our screenshots, and it's something that I was very guilty of with my early screenshots on F1 2020, is our camera positioning. Now, what I was very guilty of on earlier games is getting up right in close to the cars here, especially if there was some sort of overtake occurring. Now, this sort of angle can work really well if you're going for some sort of shot that has the cars in the foreground and you're trying to get a landmark of the track in the background, something like the Ferris wheel at Japan or some other landmark. But in my personal opinion, most of the time, this sort of angle gives the cars a weird sort of perspective. They just don't look very natural. And the reason for that is the majority of the time we see photos of F1 cars in real life, obviously, the cameraman's not sitting in the middle of the track right up close to the cars. He's all the way back, away from the track, probably behind the barriers, and zooming all the way in as much as he possibly can. Obviously, at the cars, not at the ground. And this tends to give us a bit more of a natural looking image. Now, something I also like to do when I'm taking my photos is just give us a little bit of camera roll, and that gives the illusion that the cars are sort of almost driving upwards or something along those lines. I don't know. I just prefer that sort of camera angle. Now, for the rest of the settings I use, I'm going to be loading my preset and running through each individual setting from there just to save us a little bit of time. So this is my preset. Obviously, at the moment, this screenshot doesn't look great, but bear with me. The purpose of a preset is just to get us close to the sort of picture that we're looking for. From here, we fiddle around with our settings, and we could get pretty much bang on every time with the sort of photo that we're looking for. So, the settings I am running with this preset, I have a camera roll of 6 degrees, exposure of 1.4, my autofocus depth of field is set to 3.2, and I tend to focus that on the tyre closest to the camera, in this case the front right of the Ferrari. Obviously we're zoomed all the way in, and our shutter speed is set to 250. Now we can go higher than that, and that decreases the feeling of motion on the cars. We can go lower than that, but the problem with that is often we get a lot of motion blur on cars surrounding the car that the photo is focusing on, and that can severely hamper the look of our screenshot. So I tend to not go much lower than 250, and that tends to avoid distorting the cars around the car that we're focused on. Now in the effects tab, I'm still running the early bird color grade. It's the same one I was running last game, and I still have the same opinions about it. I think it greatly improves the color grading of the game overall. Obviously, you can use whatever color grade you want. I just personally prefer this one. From there, I have my brightness set to 0, my saturation to 1.2, contrast to 1.65, bloom to 0.45, and lens flares on. Now, going into the most important setting in photo mode is our time of day. This allows us to completely manipulate the position of the sun and therefore the angle of the lighting on the cars. Now, last game, I generally focused our time of day to either early morning or late afternoon. That tended to get a really nice low lighting angle on the cars, and you get some really nice reflections off the bodywork of the cars. This game, I tend to focus more mid-morning and afternoon. I feel like early and late morning and afternoon tend to be a little bit too dark, and there's not a lot you can work around with it. Right, now having made our final adjustments to our time of day, this is what we end up with. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. So a couple of really quick things to mention before we end the video. For nighttime photos, I use all the exact same settings, but exposure defaults to 5 for nighttime photos. So what I do, I tend to drop it to around 3.8, 3.7. That stops the image looking really washed out, and it just looks a little bit nicer. We get some nice defined reflections off the cars, which obviously we can't mess around too much because we can't change the time of day in nighttime races. Another thing as well, I don't know about you guys, but I really hate the EA F1 22 watermark ruining my screenshots, especially if I'm using them for thumbnails. It can become a pain to remove them, and it's just a mess, and it's really annoying. What you can do, if you don't want the watermark on your photos, you can go to super resolution. It was bugged last game, it caused some rendering issues with your photos. This game it's mostly fixed, it gets rid of the watermark when you take the photo, and everything just looks so much nicer. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is my guide to photo mode on F122. If you think you learned something and you want to share your photos, feel free to join the Discord. I have my photo mode flex channel for everyone to post their epic photos and their My Team liveries in, and who knows, in the future I may even consider doing some videos where I have a look and rate all your screenshots in the game, maybe even give you guys a couple of pointers so you can even further improve your photos in game. But thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all for the next video on the F1 game.